Hello, everybody, and good afternoon, and good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to another author interview here in the Success Book Club. And today I have somebody really impressive who I admire a lot. I've connected on Clubhouse with him and on social media. His name is Ying Tan, and he's in London. So first of all, welcome, Ying. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Richard. Really delighted to be here.
Great to be here. Great to have you here. And Ying has written a book, which obviously we're going to talk about today. It's very, very impressive. It's called Don't Push Too Many Trolleys. And the subtitle being, And Other Tips from Navigating Life and Business. It's a book that I really, really enjoyed. I just want to read very quickly, Ying, your bio. So Ying Tan is a successful entrepreneur, a financial services innovator, and mortgage expert. He is the CEO of Dynamo, the UK's leading mortgage broker. And Ying began his career in investment banking, Goldman Sachs, et cetera, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But Ying, you're obviously a very successful business person. The book is fantastic. So first of all, I'd just love to know, like, how did the book come about? And I'm sure everybody asks you, tell us a bit about the title. What has that got to do with your life?
Well, great. And thank you for the very kind intro. And the book came about for slightly sad circumstances. My mum became quite ill in 2018, and in November that year she sadly lost her life. And it was quite a traumatic experience in that, I mean, deaths always are, but she was ill in Asia and we wanted to bring her back to the UK, but she fell so ill, she was on a life support machine. And we had to take her on a commercial airline, hiring out the whole of Singapore Airlines at the back of it. So you can imagine the cost for that, along with 3 doctors and 2 nurses, to take her back to England. She was picked up by an ambulance and then went directly to the UCLH hospital in London on a life support machine the whole way, and a ventilator. So she was intubated. So it was pretty tough. And sadly, she didn't make it through. And she and my father have been massive inspirations and formed the first part of my why. And I kind of reflected, and I've got 5 children. I had 3 at the time and I had 2 on the way. So I looked and thought, I've got so much to pass them, knowledge to tell them, that I thought I could put it down on paper better, because at their ages that they were at the time, they were, pretty young still. My eldest is 16, but this was 2 years ago. So they're at a stage where, they don't really fully appreciate or understand the history or the background or the values or the ethos. So I thought I'd put it on paper and leave that as a legacy, inspired by my parents, and leave it as a legacy to my children, to hopefully get a few of my stories on a piece of paper, because you know what it's like when you're older and you sit talking, they don't always want to hear those stories. And that was really the driver for me, really. And so it was born out of not so good circumstances, but delighted I made a choice, because I've had such rave reviews how it's impacted so many people's lives. And I guess the title, Don't Push Too Many Trolleys, and when you read it, it will certainly come to life, that it relates to an incident when I was around 17 years old. One of my first jobs, if not the first job I got as a Saturday job. I'm sure there'd be an opportunity to talk about my background, but I was very keen to work at a young age so I could earn some money, so my parents didn't have to provide for me. I was working as a trolley boy in Asda, in my local town, which is Farnborough in Hampshire. And being the entrepreneur, I guess, even at that age, and the innovative type of person I am, I said, right, okay, how can I be efficient and productive with my time? Rather than taking 1 trolley at a time to the front, or even 3 or 4, if I took 10 or 20, surely that would make my walking up and down far less cumbersome. I did exactly that. And being the competitive person I am, the other trolley boy was pushing about 20. So if he can push 20, I can push 25. Long story short, I first day pushed the trolleys, lost control, which is the analogy of life. Lost control and smashed right into a brand new spanking black BMW, and it was just a kind of a horrifying moment for me on your first day at a job. As passionate as I am about helping people and doing the right thing, I'd just done this horrible thing, and she was shouting at me, and rightly so. Went into my manager, she was shouting even louder at me. I'm almost secretly proud that they actually changed the health and safety to have a maximum of 8 trolleys. It's almost probably driven from that incident. But I guess it relates to don't juggle too many balls, don't bite off more than you can chew, or don't spin too many plates. It's that kind of life lesson. And I think I've learned the hard way, and I've used those life lessons to ensure that I don't do something similar again. And that's enabled me to be more successful in life, hopefully. And I think the lesson from that is everything happens for a reason. And at that time, you don't always know it. You know, at that time, at a 17-year-old, that was my world, of my first job. You know, my world was crushing down, and I could easily kind of go into a shell. But I think when bad things happen to you, you've got to look at it and say, okay, that's a life lesson. And I don't know what the reason is yet now, but everything happens for a reason. But at some stage in the future, I will know why that happened. And if it's helped me do something better or achieve more in my life from that lesson learned, then actually, although I didn't know at the time, it was a lesson worth having, and it was an expense worth spending. So that was the logic. Hopefully I didn't become too long-winded in answering.
Brilliant. No, brilliant. Absolutely. No, I identified an awful lot with it and reflected on my journey, you know, times where I've had too many, you know, plates spinning or whatever. So I definitely identified with it. So you talked about your family. So, you know, I love in your bio, it says that you're a father of 5 and you're a husband of 1. You know, I love that. So tell me a bit about your background. You mentioned it there. You know, it's very evident to me in the book that your family values from a young age, you know, have really influenced, especially the way you run your business. So tell us a little bit about that.
So my children, family, or my parents, you want?
Well, your parents first, and then
okay. Well, I'll tell you the journey of my parents, because it's one that's really inspired me and formed my why. So my father, I really do have to wind the clock back to 1959, when my father was 21 years old. He was wanted to come to the UK. He was the eldest of 12 children. So the responsibility of the eldest, they came from a poor family. If you imagine, you know, kind of a well, you know, corrugated metal as a roof, you know, and cows and chickens walking at the front, you kind of can vaguely picture the type of place that he came from. And it was called a very local village, but he wanted to go and better himself. Malaysia was part of the Commonwealth, so there was free passage without much immigration to worry about. And he told his parents he wanted to go, as you'd expect, as a 19, 20, 21-year-old. Passport was taken away, locked into a safe. So Dad was distraught. He wanted to go. He'd seen lots of newspapers. He was dead excited. So he still wanted to go. So he spoke to his mother, and he managed to persuade her to get the key, and basically got the passport and ran to the train station. His father, my grandfather, was following him, and it's one of those sliding door moments where he was on the train, and my grandfather was running. But as he was running, he didn't get there in time, and the door shut and the train went off. And that was his beginning of his journey to the UK. He backpacked, you heard that right. He backpacked with £20 in his pocket, and all the way to the UK. Took him about 4 to 5 months. And he still gets very emotive. I say still, sadly, he passed away around 6 months ago. But up until, you know, a year ago, and certainly when the book was written, he still would get emotive telling me that story, you know, even though this was 60 years on or whatever. So it must have been clearly a very heart-wrenching moment, which I don't think we could all fully appreciate. But I think, you know, you talk about my values and things. It comes, you know, when someone has done that type of sacrifice to get where they are, to give you the opportunity, you know, we want to kind of give them back and pay back. So on his journey, he almost died. He got food poisoning in Pakistan, and his partner he came with left him to rot effectively, not maliciously, but because it was, you know, survival of the fittest. And if Dad wasn't going to make it, he was going to go without him and on with the journey and take the money with him. So, you know, his best mate effectively left him in hospital with his money, but he somehow pulled himself up, kept going on. He got chucked into jail by not having a ticket in India. He got attacked by shepherds in the Middle East. You know, there was lots of stories. He had to sell his watch so he could get a jacket when he got cold. You know, a phenomenal story, and it probably deserves a session in itself. But ultimately, he got to the border of France and England, and when he was there, he literally ran out of money, and he was sat at the ferry, and day after day, the captain of the ship would walk past him, and by the 3rd or 4th day, the captain said, "What are you doing there, son?" And he said, "Well, I'm waiting to go to the UK." He goes, "Well, why aren't you going?" "I can't afford it." "Son, I'm going to take you, and when I'll take you across on my ship, but when I go across, when you get to the other end, you can pay me back. I mean, this type of stuff, I don't think it would ever happen in what day and age we have, but that was the generosity people showed. And my father, he said, as long as you pay me back, my father said, I'll pay you back. My dad went to Marble Arch in London and worked at the Cumberland Hotel, which still stands today, as a kitchen hand, got a job, first paycheck. What he did was to send that money back. And he sent that money back to him, to the captain, with his first paycheck. And that is a thing that I've always resonated with running my business. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. By hook or by crook, you do it. You don't say it for the sake of doing it. And that integrity is so pivotal to success in business. And I've used that in the same integrity that my father taught me to a degree, or certainly is instilled in our DNA. Equally, the impact you can have on other people's lives is profound, because if that man did not give my dad the opportunity to get that ferry across, or if the person who helped give my dad a jacket when he was freezing and he could have died of death or whatever, when he was traveling, all of these people at some point they impacted. That has a massive ripple effect, because I wouldn't be here today. All the people that I've impacted today, even by maybe impacting one of you guys here viewing this moment here, might suddenly pivot into doing something different or take a nugget from it. It may impact your life. That wouldn't happen if I wasn't here to do that. And if you go back, and I think that when you look at that and you look at that as perspective, you realize how important everything you do and the ripple effect it has. And the attitude of, when you give up, you don't just give up on yourself, you give up on everybody around you. And that is an attitude which I think has been really, really profound in helping me build my business, the ethics I've run to build my business, and how I've grown it in an ethical, organic, hard-working manner. Because building a business doesn't happen overnight. If you want to be rich quickly, buy a lottery ticket. If you get lucky, congratulations. Building a business organically without investment and bootstrapped effectively takes a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and a lot of sacrifice. But it's absolutely worth it when you get there. So that's kind of about my father, and I'm sure you can ask more questions about my own children or whatever.
That was absolutely fantastic. And as you say, definitely, I'm sure maybe you have talked about that for hours at a time, because it's such a story of resilience. It's so inspirational, and it's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. It makes us realize really how easy we have it today. It's
Yes.
it's just such a story. So yeah, I can see you've I can see three of them anyway in the picture behind you.
Yes,
So,
that's probably a slightly old photo, but yeah, I've got three boys. So my oldest is now 16. I've got a 14-year-old, I've got a 9-year-old, and I have two twin girls, 2 years old. So we wanted three boys. We wanted another baby. Kind of wish for a girl. Be careful what you wish for. Two
get
for the price of one.
brilliant.
So they were.
I'm really curious. Has your eldest son read the book?
Yes, my eldest and my second son have read it,
Brilliant.
and absolutely inspired by it. And I think the true meaning of the book probably won't run home until they're older. It's one of those books, and they've even said it themselves, that they'll read it when they're older. But I think it certainly, hopefully, left something on them. And that was the intention for that legacy. And so yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So you touched on something there, which I think is really key. And obviously, our goal here, as you said, if somebody watches this, just one person, and they pick something up, then as far as I'm concerned, that's brilliant.
Job done.
Read the book, and it's absolutely fantastic. But for me, you picked up on something there, which is all about the resilience of business. And one of my questions are, because this is what I was so impressed by, and I suppose you could pick up on the story of the business in this as well, but especially from 2008 to 2011, obviously everybody knows the world was in such a financial crisis. How did you keep going?
Yeah, great question. And sometimes I look back at that period and ask myself the same question. It was very tough. We set the business up in 2006. My background is I'm an ex-investment banker, like you mentioned, Deutsche Bank, UBS, Goldman Sachs. So I'm a qualified accountant. And I grew the business I started the business because I was going to my mortgage broker at the time, telling them what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And I thought, blimey, if that's the best the mortgage broker can offer me, do it myself. But 2006, I'd started building up, up to 2006, I'd already built up quite a large property portfolio. And then over the 2006 to 2007, 2008, the business was exploding. We got to about 30 strong, which at the time was, wow, that's crazy. You know, I didn't think I'd have a business of 30 staff, even though it was very much part of the plan. Then the financial crisis came and it hit hard. We're talking about a market which went from a 40 billion pound market to an 8 billion pound market overnight. So this was led by, you know, ultimately it was led by the subprime crisis and lending, you know, whereas, you know, clearly any potential impact on our current economy is COVID related. This one, at the forefront of the impact of the whole crisis was the financial crisis, and it was driven from mortgages and finance. We were right at the forefront, and it was painful. You know, Lehman Brothers, you know, people queuing up. You could probably visualize outside Northern Rock trying to get their savings. It was a horrible time, and it was really tough. And you know, when you just built up a business at that stage, it was always my baby and my vision. But I did get 2 other directors at the time and shareholders. You know, we sat down and said, do we want to continue this? And absolutely, around that board table, a couple of times, at least during that period, we discussed folding the business. And, you know, I actually brought one of the directors out during the depth of the recession and one of the directors out just after the recession. It was really hard, and it was the resilience that you needed. You know, I remember one of the staff saying at the time, you're not going to be here in 6 months' time. You know, that kind of drove me further, because I knew I believed in the vision, believed in the opportunity, was passionate about what we did. I had the purpose, what we wanted to do. But, you know, I think to be in business, you need a couple of things: resilience, grit, determination. You will get knocked down so many times during your journey. And I think it goes a little bit similar to when I opened this session up with you, that you've got to look at it as part of the journey, that those failures, those tough times are sometimes needed. And, you know, we have to take it on the chin and say, you know, this is tough. I had to downsize at that time from 30 odd staff to 3 or 4. And that's a massive change. But I had to make those difficult decisions for the best of the business. I had people there who I considered friends with me at the time, and probably still do. Yet I had to pull them into my office, which wasn't an office, by the way, at that time. It was just an open plan office, and tell them that, you know, this can't continue because we need to keep the business afloat. And seeing everything crumble around us, other mortgages, you know, crumble under us. But I guess to a certain degree, because we were still relatively young business, we were agile, we were dynamic, and we built a really strong culture. And it wasn't just me, because if it's just me that has that vision and purpose and that hunger and determination, then it's not going to be enough. You need those around you. You are the average of the 5 people around you. And at that stage, it was about 4 or 5 people with the business. And they're all exceptional. They're still with us today as the business has expanded significantly. And I think it was just that belief that things would get better. I was also fortunate. I had a property portfolio that was allowing to give me the income. So I could, you know, please don't get the violin out, but I allowed myself not to get paid for those 3 years. You know, I didn't pay myself a penny. Whereas most people say, well, how can you not pay yourself a penny? You've got to live. But I had to see the bigger picture. And luckily, you know, had I not made those sacrifices during that time, had I not shown that resilience, that determination, and that grit to keep moving forward, you know, we wouldn't be where we are today. And that's why it's so important.
Brilliant. And can I ask, like, that big vision that you had at that time, how did you create that? Did you have, like, is there any books in particular that inspired you, or mentors, or, you know, did you have people who were really rock solid that helped you at that time?
My family network, for sure. I think after my parents got over the initial shock of leaving a very good 6-figure salary as one of the youngest vice presidents of Goldman Sachs to kind of what they thought was to bum around, I think after they got over that, then they absolutely backed me. My sister, on the other hand, has always been very supportive. She's 10 years older than me, so like a second mother. And they were probably my mentors at the time. And I just started, you know, actually, what were we talking about? No, I was already married, wasn't I? 2006. So yeah, obviously my wife was a massive rock. So yeah, I mean, but I never had any formal mentors or formal coaches, which I know is kind of hot topic in the current world we live in. Yeah. For me, life gave me all the lessons I needed. Yeah. And that I go back to the kind of the title of the book, really, that as long as you learn from those lessons and use those mistakes, those failures as lessons, then they will be the best lessons that you can get. I'm certainly not knocking coaching, far from it. I think coaching and mentoring has a massive place in today's society, because it can get you to somewhere a lot earlier. But for me, I didn't have any. I had just a strong support of my parents and my family, my wife, and the inspiration that knowing that I'm going to have a young family to kind of build a secure future for. So that was kind of where my mindset came from.
Brilliant. That is fantastic. And there's something that struck me because it's something that I've used a lot. You mentioned the serenity prayer in the book.
Yes.
That really jumped out at me because, say, I've used it a lot. So tell us a bit about that. How did you come across that, and when would you have used that?
God, that's a great answer. I'm not even sure when I came across it. It was one of those things, I think, when you're young and you like to get inspired and you kind of get those quote books. And it was one of those quotes that always came in, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. Courage to change the things that you can, and wisdom to know the difference. Those words always resonated with me because it says, well, if I can't control it, if I can't change it, why am I stressing about it? And I think that kind of mindset is so important if you want to be successful, because in your journey in business, in your journey in life, success is however you define it, right? Some of it is, people say success is rich, some of it is health, happiness, whatever. Everyone has a slightly different definition, but whatever you define it with is that ultimately, if you can't change things that help you get that journey, why are you worrying about it? I'm one of those that have to be quite single-mindedly and only allow the things to influence me that I have some impact on, that I can change. Hence the courage to change. When I can change it, let me have the belief to go and do it. Because if I've got that belief, don't procrastinate and just do it. Then I think success, however you define it, is more likely to come. So and knowing the difference clearly is vitally important, so you can channel the energy in the right area. So I think that's why it always resonated for me. And I'm not sure where I picked the quote up, but it was one of those inspirational books that you kind of read and things. And going back to your question about books, I'm not, believe it or not a massive reader. I've read a fair few books. My property days was inspired, like many people, like the Kawasaki books and the Rich Dad Poor Dad. But the initial property one I read was an older book called Think Like a Tycoon. I mean, the word tycoon is not really even used around these days anymore, but that's how old the book was. But I think it's by W.G. Hill. But he gave me the kind of insight of the power of leverage, and how you can, use other people's money or the bank's money to build your wealth. And that's how I got into the property game. So yeah, so the serenity prayer is a great kind of inspirational quote, I guess, if you want to call it, or prayer that helps me. When I am struggling at time, I kind of revert back to that, and that allows me to gain that focus again.
Yeah, brilliant. So it strikes me like quite evidently that your upbringing, like your really solid upbringing, is like a foundation for the rest of your life and your success in particular.
Yes.
Do you? I know gratitude was also mentioned a lot. Is that, are you consciously grateful for that? Is that a big part of it? How do you feel about that in general?
It is, Richard. My parents, and just to put things in perspective, my dad made those sacrifices, but never in his 30 or 40 years in the UK, never became a very wealthy person. He had 2 jobs, second job after he'd come back at 6 o'clock, and then he'll go off at 7 o'clock to work for 3 or 4 hours, and an evening job. Both mum and dad had to do that, as housekeepers and cleaners, and going in factories as well as their office job during the day. They didn't have business. People often get surprised by that, being of a Chinese and background, that we didn't have a takeaway or anything like that. Mum and dad have very normal 9-to-5 jobs. So it was quite a tough upbringing in terms of financially, but that is probably what's inspired me to be so hard, seeing how hard my parents have worked and seeing how don't get me wrong, my parents bickered like the best of them. They bickered a lot, in fact, but they did everything together. They tried to raise me to have the right values, to kind of embrace the West, because I was born in the UK, I knew nothing different, but to remember my heritage from Asia, and the East meets West, and to get the values right from that perspective. So I think the values and the foundation that I gave definitely was a big part on how I've tried to build that. And even within my business, it's very much, we're an entrepreneurial business. I would never be I'd never call us a family business. But we sometimes can have that family feel, for sure, because we all care about each other. We all want to head in the same direction. And I think that's really important. And lots of those values that I build within the business are what I've learned from as a young boy. And equally, the family that I have now with my own children, of course, with my wife, who's a massive influence on me and the children, and I wouldn't be able to do anything without her. she, we try and embed our own values that we've learned as children of our parents and get the best of both worlds and mix together. Hopefully that's the secret formula. Well, I'm not sure there is a secret formula to raise 5 children.
No, it sounds very, very busy to me with the business as well. So 6 children effectively. So I'm always really intrigued with authors, just the process of writing a book. So I suppose 7 children, 5 kids, the business, and now writing the book as well. So while you were birthing the book, like what was I'm just curious about your practices.
At that stage, the staff, the size of the business was about 170, 180 strong, something like that. If you choose each of those as my children, because sometimes you do, then it's a bit more than 7 or 8 or 9. The time is, you make time. Firstly, I'm a big fan of using the diary to segment things. At the end of the day, if I blocked out 2 hours every day in my diary, which is more or less what I did to do that, then that's like a meeting. You don't miss it. You switch off your emails, you close the door, and you just crack on with it. And that's what I effectively do. I had a target because Mum passed in November. I more or less had the idea of the book before, and Mum passed in November. And the children, the 2 twin girls were born in May. So those were the 6 months where I wrote the book, because after the girls were born, obviously time was even more of a scarce commodity. But that was how it is. And I was fortunate to also work with, I guess, like a good editor, or, someone who helped me put my ideas together. And Mike, he said I could write it. I wrote it all nicely. It didn't quite flow. And having someone else to kind of work with and brainstorm was just a massive help for me. And then they'd also been on the journey before with publishers. So, pitching, it's almost like raising investment in the Dragon's Den. You've got to pitch to a publisher, haven't you? And kind of show your paper and show what it's this and that. That person helped me on that journey as well. So I was lucky that I had the support, but I think it's all about discipline. It's about having a deadline. And my deadline was the 23rd of May, when I knew the girls were going to be born. And that is, and then that creates a structure. It's like a project, effectively. If you've got a project plan, we have a start and end date, that's what you work with. Of course, things will slip, and if things slip, you have to adjust things accordingly, or put extra hours in, or whatever it might be. And of course, they did it many a times. But I think with that structure, with that discipline, and with the support around me of a great senior management team, by the way, who helped look after the business quite significantly. So I didn't have to be worrying just about that. Obviously, my wife, who's massive with the family, it allowed me to do some focus on the book. But I didn't, just do the book. Of course, I still was a father. Of course, I still was a chief executive of the business. But that 6-month period, which I had a lot of time for reflection, having lost my mum. It felt like the right time to do it, and I created the right discipline and environment to make sure I did do it.
And one thing that I'm always curious of as well, what did it feel like whenever the book actually arrived and you're holding and you're able to hand that to your children? Like, what does that feel like, that's your legacy?
We recorded it, but I won't send it to you. But we did record the moment, because obviously the books are like, oh, look, let's take a photo, a video of the recording. And the closest I can see it, and it sticks out in my mind when you said that, so I will share it, whether it's a strange share or not, but is Back to the Future. I don't know if you've ever seen Back to the Future.
I love it.
Yeah, great film, right? And I think Marty McFly's dad has written a book in the kind of the parallel world that he comes back to, or whatever. Yeah. And the books arrive, and it is literally just one box at first, because that's the one that the publisher sends you. And it's how we get the family round to the family round, you kind of cope out, and then you kind of lift the book up, and I'm just trying to see if I've got a copy here myself, but you lift the book up and you get all excited, and that was how it was. Wonderful, warm feeling, and all that hard work of long hours and late nights, and going to and fro with the editors, and your companion who's been helping you put this together. It's just a great warm feeling, and one I'll never forget.
Brilliant, love it. So before we actually hear about your business today, there's one story in the book that I found really, really cool, and that's the story where you say, we forgot to say that you're an avid Liverpool Football Club fan. And you say about as children, a lot of us have dreams to play for that sporting team.
Yeah.
But realistically, will it ever happen? But actually, you have played football at Anfield.
I have, yes.
Can you tell us? I think that's a great story from childhood to making that happen.
It's I am a massive Liverpool fan. I'm fortunate enough to have sponsored one of the awards at Liverpool, where I got to present the best supporters globally for Liverpool. And I presented it with Sadio Mane, and I stood next to him on a podium and announced it, went backstage with him, had a good chat, and it was fantastic. But that was a different event. I've been a big Liverpool fan since, you know, as young as I can remember, really. You could probably accuse me of being a glory hunter in the early days when we were the best team in the 70s, 80s. You could certainly not have accused me of that for the last 20 years, with the exception of the last year or two. But yeah, you know, through thick and thin, I'm there with them, very passionate. I still to this day, you know, put my colours on, watching a game in front of the big screen, you know, with my scarf on and my little Liverpool cup and my Liverpool shirt. You know, that's how kind of weird, you could call it, I am about supporting Liverpool and the traditions that I've always had since I've been a kid. But yeah, my opportunity got because one of the businesses that we work very closely with sponsors, was a big sponsor of the club. So invited me to play a football game there. Of course, you know, playing at Anfield, God, it's a dream. So invited there, and I was like a kid in a candy shop, you know, touched the "This is Anfield" sign, kissed the hello turf, you know, walked out as to "You never walk alone," as if there was 45,000 people. I mean, it was amazing. And there wasn't 45,000, but my family were there. There was probably a few hundred people there. And I think the story I share in my book, which is, you know, at the moment, I think we all dream of playing football on your beloved team's pitch and scoring a goal. So we were playing a game, and you know, you can't help but want, even though it's a team game, everyone wants you to pass and all that. The reality is you only get one opportunity to play here, right? I ain't passing to anybody. I'm gonna be taking this on. I'm gonna try and score a goal at the Kop end. And I got my chance. It was about midway through the game. I did a Cruyff turn, which was, you know, one of those kind of very difficult to describe, but you know, you kind of put your inside of your foot and pull the back to fool the defender. I kind of dodged at one, and I kind of dropped the shoulder with another, kind of swerved, and I literally felt like I did the Maradona move where I'd taken 3 or 4 people on and run the ball from the halfway line. The kind of the goals there, you kind of seen these lights, and then this is my moment. This is my moment. I pulled my foot back, swung the foot, and I didn't quite connect the ball very well, and it kind of bobbled along into the hands of the keeper, you know, to the kind of the rapturous applause or not of the audience. So I'm sad to say we don't have a great ending in that. I can't say I scored a streaming goal at the Kop end in front of 50,000 because it didn't happen, but I certainly played on the turf. I had a great game, actually. Probably was man of the match there, if I don't say so myself, but I didn't score. But it would never, you know, despite that, it wouldn't tarnish the experience. And I guess that's a little bit of my positivity as well. I could easily look at that and go, oh, God, my one chance I'll ever get to score at the Kop end. I don't look at it like that, because if you do, you live life in regret. I look at it, wow, I've got an opportunity to play at Anfield, you know, in front of my family, you know, and what an experience that was.
Brilliant. So I can share a little story with you. So
please,
you talk about 2005 and obviously the big night.
Yes.
In May 2005. So I'm not that big a football fan at all, I have to admit. But that particular night, I was in an airport hotel in London. I don't even remember which airport it was, but it was in an airport hotel on my own, and I had it on the TV. And as the goals started going in, you know, it was 3-2, and then it was extra time. I thought, I got to go down and see if there's other people experiencing this amazing moment. So I went down to the hotel bar, and there was about 50 people exactly the same, with like some of them with pajamas on, some of them just like tracksuit bottoms on. And we all got pints. We were like, you know, obviously it's a business type hotel. Everybody's just on their own, getting ready to fly out or whatever. And everyone's like, we couldn't sit in the hotel room on our own, like just the atmosphere and everything. So it was an amazing evening in that hotel bar, because just for the whole nation, it was an amazing, amazing night. So I'll never forget that myself. I was actually flying to Italy the next day. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you.
I think it's one of those, you know, I wouldn't put it quite up with JFK or Princess Diana, but certainly if you're an avid Liverpool fan, or even if you watched a game that impacted you like it did so many people, that is, you'll definitely not forget where you were or what you were doing that night.
And I love how you've taken things from that. So I'm very conscious of your timing. I know you're very, very busy. So tell us about your business today. Like, what's happening for you today?
Yeah, well, the business is going great. We've just had a couple of record months, despite the pandemic. I think we've been blessed that, you know, unlike aviation or hospitality, we're in an industry that's been really well That's coped really well because the incentives from the government on stamp duty and various furlough schemes, etc., has really helped fuel the market. So we've been blessed, and the market's gone really well. We're not as big as we used to be. We're still well over 100, but that's a lot of that's down to processes. We had made some people redundant about 12 months ago off back of lockdown one, but again, preemptive decisions to make sure that the business continued to flourish. And as sad as it is, they were the right decision for the business. But the business is doing great. Dynamo, one of the largest mortgage brokers in the UK, received investment from a FTSE business 4 or 5 years ago. That FTSE business was acquired by another large company recently. So they're our new partners, and they're a great partner to have. It really opens our up that they're by some distance the largest property services business in the UK now. Connells and Countrywide was the FTSE 250 business. So 2 really big players in the property industry, and we're delighted that their partnership with us now, and things are going good. Of course, things could always be better. We're also, I'm not naive to think that things are going to keep being rosy. At the end of the day, the world is shut down more or less for 6 or 9 months. There's been a lot of government stimulus. When all of that stops, it'll be an interesting and challenging time. But I have the belief that together, the mindset, the ethos of the business will be to keep moving forward. And kind of Rocky has that saying, doesn't he? It's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep coming back. And that's the kind of mindset and the attitude that our guys have. So yeah, we're hopeful that things will continue to do well. And for me, the bigger picture is, I won't be sat here forever. I want to be able to give back, so I spend quite a lot of time on Clubhouse when I can, because I want to give that knowledge out. I don't have a course to sell. I impart that knowledge, like a lot of people on the platform, for free, because I love helping people, and I love changing people's mindsets and attitudes, and hopefully that directions of their lives for the better. But yeah, at some stage I'll take a back seat and do some advisory roles. I want to do lots more for charity. We've raised loads of money for mental health over the last 12 months for various things. We've got another challenge later this year for a triple Snowdon challenge, 22 miles cycling, 4 miles kayaking, and climbing Mount Snowdon, all in a day.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of me really. I from the business perspective, keep moving forward. But at some stage I'll take a step back and leave the reins to one of my great senior management teams. And hopefully start to kind of slow down a little bit and enjoy much more of an advisory position and helping people develop themselves.
And how many do you employ at the present time?
I don't know the exact numbers. Over 100, probably about 120, 130, something like that.
Wow, brilliant. So what I'll do is, wherever you're watching this, I'll put links around to Ying's company, and if people want to reach out and find either the business or yourself, Ying, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, well, reach out to me on LinkedIn is probably the place I'm most active. Ying Tan. Alternatively, find me on the Dynamo website and reach out to contact us. But if you want to contact me personally, best place is probably LinkedIn. And if it's business related, I'll put you in touch with the right person. If it's personal related, obviously I'll see what I can do to serve.
Brilliant. And obviously, as I said to you, Ying, there's many kind of stories like this, autobiographies of business and things. Some of them are honestly quite dry and things. This is really good. I mean, the whole story of your father and everything interweaved with it, your story of your travel, the whole lot, the resilience. I mean, it's really impressive. So I definitely encourage people to go and pick it up. Obviously, Amazon, wherever you can get it, you'll find it. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, you can get it on Amazon. We've got quite a lot of 5-star reviews for that, which I'm really proud of. You can get WH Smith, Waterstones, all the major booksellers, or you can go direct to the website, don'tpushtoomanytrolleys.co.uk. And if you go there, you'll get a signed copy, because that's the copies that I've got. So
brilliant.
Either or, feel free to reach out. Brilliant.
So Ying, with that leaves nothing else. I mean, I think we could talk about this all day. Honestly, there's so much that I picked out of it. But I know you're busy man, and I just want to say thank you very much from everybody who's watched this. I've no doubt this will have impacted somebody for the better, for sure. So thank you. Thank you, Richard, and really appreciate your time and your insights and your honest, candid review of the book. And yeah, thank you, any listeners out there who have read it, or plan to read it. Thank you. That means a lot to me, and I wish you best on your journey.
And all the very best, and stay safe.
That's great. Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Cheers.